We are few, but we are strong. We're going to start at the top of our mat, nearest the midline. Morning, Mike. With the feet together and arms by our sides, head up in line with the spine, chest buoyant, eyes soft, jaw soft. Notice tendencies, aka samskaras, such as gripping, grasping, grabbing. Adjust spontaneously. I use the Sanskrit word to prove the origins of these yogic attitudes. Sahaja. Sahaja. So Tadāsana, like toast, can be overdone quite easily. In other words, people are sort of bringing a lot of themselves. We often bring a lot of ourselves to Tadāsana. I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn my arms out. But instead, the power in yoga comes not from oneself, aka our habit patterns. Well, we normally call ourselves our habit patterns, our thoughts, our ideas, our views, our opinions. But spontaneously, sahaja, the power arises out of surrender, sharanagati, to this moment in its wholeness. So any movements are fine. I'm moving my toes as I'm speaking to you because there's an intuitive sense of tuning out of the habit patterns, the expectations, the gripping, the grasping, the grabbing that's been educated into us from childhood and through our societies and so on. And tuning out of that and tuning into this, which is best described as sanditiko dharma, apparent here and now. Raise the arms up when you're ready and stay relaxed if you want. And just contemplate that for a moment. We were offered an opportunity to stay relaxed if we wanted. So therefore, we probably will have to question, do I want to stay relaxed? I anticipate that most of us might respond, yes. So movements obviously help hydrate areas like the thoracolumbar fascia, on the back, the middle back, lower back. But that hydration, yogically speaking, is holistic. What we might say is healthy fascia is the same as what Buddhists call non-attachment. It's identical because things happen on every plane simultaneously. Inhale, exhale, fold and touch the floor, which means bend the knees in 99.9% of people. And in about the remaining few, 1%, still some of those should bend the knees because we shouldn't have any dullness, aching or pain in the back at all. So if you do, and your legs are straight, then maybe bend them. Or if it's close to feeling okay and the legs are straight, you can move your pelvis and knees and so on. But for most of us, the wise yogic thing to do is bend the knees. Step back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog. Notice any habituation of any kind. Yogic habituation. If you're used to going to yoga classes, you can get into a yoga program. It's like there's a program you download and it's the yoga program, but it's not, it's not engagement until we're breathing. Are we breathing? That is to say, spontaneously. There is no spontaneous breath without investigation. This is the second of the ways in which we can recognize yoga. It's apparent here and now, and it invites investigation. Ehipassiko dhamma. It invites investigation. It's like natural. That's how you recognize what yoga is, not because you pay money for a yoga class, or because you've got yoga leggings, or because you're on a yoga mat, which of course none of these things existed 60 years ago. But because you're breathing here and now, because it's inviting investigation, like play, bending the knees, extending the knees, that kind of thing. Bring the shoulders forwards above the wrists. Breathe through the nose. Keep the jaw soft, allow movement to happen. Oh. So maybe moving left, maybe moving right. Just balancing and rebalancing. Lower the knees and touch the floor. Very lightly. And then lift them up again. Back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. And then we're going to jump or step back to our hands. Usually best on an exhalation. Often best just not done at all. Just walked forward. Knees bent. Breathing through the nose. Jaw soft. Bend ankles, knees, and hips if you haven't already. Probably have, hopefully. Raise the arms behind you with your ribs touching your thighs and allow movement. So how do we know yoga? Is it because we're in a yoga studio? Is it because we're on a yoga mat? Is it because we're wearing yoga leggings? No. It's because it's integrative. That's what the name means, integration. If it's not integrative, it's not yoga. Arms forwards and up. Breathe through the nose. Play. Like lila. So Vajrasati Yoga teaches lila daṇḍāsana. Play for the purpose of absorption and check in with signs of absorption like the breath opening up. That just indicates that we're moving away from doubt towards knowing, away from samshaya towards jnana. Standing up, big circle, hands to the heart center, deep breaths, plural. And just let the breath flow. Of course, spontaneous movement often comes. It may have a feeling of investigation, what we might call svadhyaya. Because yoga can be recognized not by the accoutrement that I've mentioned, yoga mats, yoga studios, yoga leggings, yoga tattoos, but instead by the three things. Sanditiko dhamma, is apparent here and now. Akaliko dhamma, it's outside of time. That's not because we think it is or we believe it is, but because we can recognize a yogic experience because it's like that. Being outside of time means you don't have any sense of where you're going or where you've come from. There's no ambition to get further. Raise the arms up. Stay relaxed if you want. Light tone on the tummy is investigative. You know, the yogi's mind is not full of tension and uncertainty. We know from the Patanjala Yoga Shastra that uncertainty is an obstacle to yoga. The third obstacle in the list of 9, samshaya, doubt, uncertainty. How do you change uncertainty to jnana, to knowing? Investigate, play, give. Look for agreement, which is where everything vibrates together. That's why it's called yoga. That's the reason it's called yoga, because everything vibrates together. Inhale, exhale, hinge from the hip joints, probably bend the knees, hands flat to the floor. Don't make your back become dull, aching, or painful. 99% people knees bent, 1% legs straight. Even that 1%, however, still need to be vigilant to make sure the lower back isn't dull, aching, or painful. It can be tricky to be really honest to ourselves, being, the social ape, the Homo sapien, because we have a lot of subconscious pressure around that sociability. Want to keep up with the Joneses, whatever the Joneses are doing. Stepping back to Adho Mukha Svanasana when you're ready, which is almost certainly now. And don't hold the breath. Relax. So Patanjali, again, he makes it very clear that the poses should be relaxed effort.
when effort is relaxed, right? When effort is relaxed, how many of us might contemplate that, but it means nothing unless we actually see how that can converse with the present moment, right? So you've got to see how it can converse with morning, Papa. Don't worry. You know, the pelvis can move left, the pelvis can move right, so it's conversing with the present moment. Shoulders forwards. You are loved. Oh, sorry, let me take that back. You are love. Breathe through your nose, jaw soft. Lower the knees. Very lightly. Very lightly. Hardly any pressure. Lift the knees. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Downward facing dog. Taking deep breaths. Soft eyes, soft brain, soft tongue. Stepping, walking, jumping, catching the number 6 bus. Get your feet back between your hands. Notice the social pressure is so subtle on us that most of us don't notice. It's like dreaming, you know. When we dream, we hardly notice. We sort of forget about it as soon as we wake up, unless we practice, of course, dream yoga. Breathing through your nose, hydrate. It makes practical sense for sensible people with furrowed brows and sensible faces to move the body, because it hydrates the myofascia, melts extraneous myofascia, circulates blood, circulates lymph, helps the body not to get stuck in any conditioned programs. It points to a flow that we should feel in the breath, in the brain, and in the body. Bend ankles, knees, and hips more until your ribs have a firm contact with your thighs. Raise your arms up like you're skiing. I've never been skiing, but I know lots of people who have, and they tell me that when they think of it as irresistible, they can't help themselves to emulate the little bumps that they feel. Perhaps a nostalgic wave comes across them. So if you feel like adding little bumps, I do now. I add little bumps, even though I've never been skiing. Okay, arms forwards and up. Breathe through the nose. Play, play, play. Disappear and re-arrive. So anything goes as long as that anything is conducive to integration. Simple, really. Stand up when you're ready. Big circle. Hands to the heart center. Deep breath, soft eyes, soft brain, soft throat. So the yogin gives herself or himself or themselves. This is commonly seen as the most fundamental of the yoga practices in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, of course, which itself is hugely influential on what we now call yoga. This practice of giving. What do you give, and to what do you give it? What have you got? Thinking, you can give that. Breathing, you can give that. Opinions, you can give those. What are you giving them to? Her, which sometimes they call her because in some traditions it's called Prakriti. Raise the arms up when you're ready. Lightly tone the tummy. Find the pelvic floor. So honesty, satya, is a beautiful thing, and it walks hand in hand with ahimsa. Non-violence, non-harming. Because when you listen, you respond appropriately. And violence is simply an inappropriate, often very inappropriate, but any inappropriate response comes into the category of violence. Inappropriate to the moment. Inhale, exhale, come down, probably, almost certainly, knees bent. because we mustn't have dullness, aching, and pain in the lower back. Stepping the foot that's furthest away from me back towards the back of your mat. Coming down with the back knee, keeping it behind the pelvis. And if it doesn't feel right where it is, lift it and land it. And actually, it's very useful to lift and land multiple times, to lift and land the back knee multiple times, because we can stretch gently, hydrate gently the inner thigh tissues, including, of course, the lower ends of the psoas and iliacus. And I just can't get enough of it, as Depeche Mode would have said if they were here now. I wish they were. Climb up onto your front leg, breathe through your nose, jaw soft. The back knee can be down or up, as you like, as the breath likes, as is appropriate. Brain, jaw, eyes soft. Brain, jaw, eyes soft. Coming back down, lifting the back knee, stepping back, catching a breath, relaxing. What's your facial expression look like right now? If someone that didn't know you saw your face now, what would they think? Would they think, oh, a nice, relaxed, kind person? Or would they think, oh, what's up? What's up with them? Right. So we know that bhavana is a fundamental part of tantric yoga. That is the yoga which includes entrainment as one of its principles. Entrainment means bringing everything together, various elements together, body, brain, breath, for example. But tantric meditations are more specific. Perhaps if the mood strikes, we might do one at the end. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Bringing the other foot forwards and lowering the other knee down. So you're coming to the other knee this time. Climbing up. Lightly, if it doesn't feel right, you come down again, adjust. It helps to adjust multiple times. It really does. This is Anjaneyasana. It's one of the names of Hanuman. Hanuman is your go-to deva if you want cities, magical powers. But most yoga texts warn us, right? This goes right back to Buddhism, that the seeking for magical powers on their own level causes a whole heap of trouble. Breathe through your nose. So magical powers just come, that's fine, we don't worry about that. So-called magical powers, but they're actually pretty understandable. Buddhist magical powers are more far out than they are in the Shaiva tradition. They're more grounded and understandable in the Shaiva tradition. But both are understandable, like the ability to become really small or really large. Or in Buddhism, we have like walk on water, walk through walls. Yeah, and especially if you understand dream yoga. A lot of this is about dream yoga and visualization. Okay, coming forwards. Lifting your back knee, stepping back, taking your breath, taking a deep breath, opening the armpits, jaw soft. Anyone whose wrist is sore, we're going to come down to hands and knees and bring our forearm on the floor, the one furthest from me. Otherwise, you take the hand that's furthest from me into the midline of the two hands and turn towards me. And you can use what will be your top leg, would have been your top leg, on the floor behind you. And you relax if you want. So that might sound silly, like relax, well, and do this. Absolutely. So play and breath and dance and love and trust and surrender and fun. All of those words. Return back to your Adho Mukha Svanasana, your downward facing dog. Don't hold your breath unless you want to pop. Open up the armpits, inner, outer, under, through investigation. Remember, we recognize yoga. Like you might recognize, I mentioned last night, I think it was you recognize an orange by the fact that it's round, by the fact that it's orange, by the fact that you get it from the fruit and veg area of the local shop or supermarket if you have to. And similarly, you recognize yoga by the fact that it inherently invites investigation, hipasiko dhamma. And it's apparent here and now. There's nothing to reach out for. It's nothing abstracted that you don't know about, that some, long-haired, bearded guru knows about, and you don't, Other hand into the midline of the two hands, obviously we're turning for the other side, or the other forearm down, and turning. And leg behind you is a useful modality. And then some surrender, lila. You can do anything, as long as the anything that you're doing is conducing to meditation, which means love and surrender. The idea that the poses are particular is an idea that's very recent, very recent. The poses are actually karana, expression. Rolling back to Adho Mukha Svanasana, down face dog. Jaw soft, brain soft, tongue soft. Everything soft that can be soft. Walk your feet a little closer to each other and raise the leg furthest away from me and then bend the knee and play. You can do things like lift the heel of the standing leg. You can do things like externally rotating. You can do things like bending, extending the raised leg. There's lots of ways in which you can play. And the purpose of the play is flow. Vahi. Abhyasa vairagya bhyamtam nirodha. Okay, keep the knee bent and then sweep the knee directly underneath the body until it lands on the floor behind the wrist on its own side. The foot moves diagonally across the body and you stretch back slow and calm. And down to forearms temporarily or for the whole pose. And massage it in. We should be very clear that no dukkha should arise in the knee of the bent leg whatsoever. And if it does, we need to massage into the hip so that it pulls out of the knee, the tension, the tightness, and draws that into the hip. The only reason the hip would reject the stretch is because of what the hip is being told to do from the nerves out of habit. So by challenging tensions and resistances in the hip, we challenge those patterns right the way back to the nerves. So we're from the muscles to the nerves. We're challenging what's coming the other way from the nerves to the muscles. And because the body cannot be run by two masters simultaneously, especially if those two masters are saying different things, either the pattern, the samskara in the nerves, will win by throwing us out of the pose, by objecting to the teacher, objecting to the pose, objecting to the time of day, or imagining something very much more important has suddenly come up, like a shelf has to be dusted or a text has to be sent. Or the samskara will give up eventually because of our tenacity. Because of our tenacity. And when the samskara gives up, this is called nerve cleansing, nadi shodhana. I should say that one can remain on the forearms or one
Some people like to elevate for a bit in the posture, and that's another option. It's just purely another option. The question about taking options is purely about whether or not what you've got going on is enough. Because we're very well educated that the constant upadana, reaching out, is what drives the wheels of karma round and round and round. Your breath is the only guru you have and will ever have. But luckily, it's normal for people who are alive to have breath with them at all times. So you're never apart from your guru. Are you listening to your guru, though? Or are you listening to a false guru, like a person or a book? Descending if you ascended, ascending if you descended. Tuck your back toes under, bring your back knee forwards, come back to hands and knees and catch your breath. Whenever you're ready, back into Adho Mukha Svanasana. Obviously, we're still checking the alignment of the hands, that the fingers are equidistant. Have you done that from the sides of the mat? Let's just briefly do that now, but do it well. Right? No arbitrary testing. No. Like when I passed my car test, I have to admit that I arbitrarily looked in the mirrors so that the driving test person would pass me, which they did. But a lot of time I was looking, not looking. So we must make sure that we're looking in yoga. Walk your feet a little closer, raise up your other leg. You're ready, bend, extend, internal, external rotation. So lila is play. Ehipasiko dhamma invites investigation. Yeah? It's completely outside of time because we're not heading to something that isn't this. Huh? There is nothing that is ever not this. Once the knee is bent, sweep it forwards underneath the posture and land it directly behind its own knee. The foot moves diagonally across the body and you stretch your other leg back. And many people, I would say most, will at least initially benefit from coming down to the forearms. It provides opportunity for massaging it in. It's very common for the IT band to be tight on the outer leg because the habit of being someone tenses us all up because no one really knows who the hell that someone really is. So we got a sense, we wake up, oh, Lord, I'm someone. And then we have to kind of gather all the things together that qualify that someone. Oh, what's the name? Oh, there's my name, right, okay. The gender, quickly slip into that. Relationships, oh, I've got relationships. And then I've got habitual tensions, better pick them up. It's like we get dressed in this garb. I'm a bit, I'm slightly tense person. I'm always too busy. That's one of the, perhaps something you pick up. But before that, that moment when you first wake up and don't know who you are, you're just as alive. You're still alive. Functioning, breathing, existing. So take refuge in the great before, as I call it. You can stay down or up. Some people like to investigate the lifting up station. And we know, of course, the pose is one of the many poses that have this title kapota, which means either grey, the color grey, or pigeon in Sanskrit for obvious reasons. Pigeons are, after all, grey. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Okay, coming forwards if you're up, coming up if you're down. Tuck under your back toes, come back to hands and knees. Take 2 or 3 or 4 deep breaths. We're going to extend our legs out in front of us, and it's very likely indeed that we'll benefit from sitting on dos bloques, which is, of course, Scandinavian for purple things. So sitting on purple things, if you haven't got purple things at home, if you're zooming at home, other colors, I suppose, are acceptable. So 2 of those, dos bloques, and then draw the buttock flesh out and back with your hands. I don't know what else you'd do it with, a little trowel, but draw the buttock flesh out and back. Some sort of buttock drawing. Exactly, I probably could make a bit of money with one of those. There's a lot of yoga stuff on the market. When you do draw the buttock flesh out and back, make sure to lean forwards and make sure the buttock flesh goes out and back, not just out, not just back. It's a diagonal positioning to bring you very purposefully to the inner front edge of the ischial tuberosities, the inner front edge of the sitting bones. Then drag your hands back next to your hips and sit up tall. Make sure you're honoring the goddess by opening up the entirety of the central channel like it's a sort of temple. So to do that, you have to be honest. You have to relax, to really feel into the central channel, and to breathe. So movement is going to help us at this station. So we're searching. This is the searching station. And we're looking for movements of the pelvis and back that facilitate little shots of lift, especially the lower back. If you can't feel the lower back lifting, you got to try harder. You got to get the lower back to lift. There's no 2 ways about it. Your lower back's got to become lighter. So you can sit on more blocks. You can press more into the hands temporarily. If the back isn't concaving, you got to try harder. That's the number 1 target. Then there's got to be light. So that's where movement helps. And breath helps. I would argue that daṇḍāsana, along with Tadāsana, is one of the most yogic and one of the most yogically important poses. This is just one of 8 stations, the ranging around station. It's followed by the broadening of the feet, which is subtle. If you try and do it, you've immediately ruined it. Because you've immediately, you remember yoga means union, and as soon as you try and do it, there's division. There's you trying to do it. 2 things. And by now, any self-respecting person sitting in daṇḍāsana should be beginning to feel the heat of the pose. Perhaps there's even wisps of smoke coming off their thighs. Which is, personally, I could sit in daṇḍāsana for half an hour, finding my bliss, as a Californian might say. Okay, come out of the pose easy, because I'm not going to make you sit in it half an hour, because I'm not a mean man. Just hop off your blocks, s'il vous plaît. Place your hands so your fingers come over the front edge of your blocks. Bring your bum away from the blocks by about a block width, rather. So is your bum about a block width away. And then suck in the tummy, lift up the chest, lift up the pelvis, travel forwards, up and overhead, and chest together fully. Fully. Breathe through the nose. There are 4 points in contact with the floor. You're absolutely free to range around those 4 points. Don't hold the breath unless you want to tense up. Don't know why you'd want to, but you might, I suppose. Come down calmly. Cross your legs. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. A few times. Make sure there's a gap between the legs and the pelvis. Palms up. Breathe through your nose. Notice mental dialogue. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing right about it. It's just mental dialogue. It's nothing to do with you. Like, think of thoughts like trees in a forest. As you walk through a forest, you don't think, what should I do about that tree? You know? Oh, there's a tree. What should I do about it? Should I go with it? Is it important? Should I fight it? Should I deny it? Should I be embarrassed about it? I'm not embarrassed about any trees in the forest. So thoughts are like that. They're not really, they're just, we're going through a walk through a forest and the trees are thoughts. So breathe through your nose, allow that movement if it comes naturally. It's karana, expression. Inhale when you're ready, lift up. Exhale, turn towards the Buddha shrine over this side of the room. You can use your blocks behind you if you find that useful. Some people find that very useful and some people find it not very useful. So you can also shove them away if they're not helping. So sorry to state the obvious. Some people find them useful, some people find them not. Breathing through the nose, a little bit of movement, investigation. Eyes, jaw, brain, tongue. Eyes, jaw, brain, tongue. Subject is called yoga. Inhale, lift, keep lifting, turning all the way around the other way. This is Parivrita Sukhasana. And of course, it being yoga, it's a parigraha. And which means empty of grasping. Parigraha means to really grasp. So it's not that you and I are empty of grasping, or this experience is empty of grasping. Grasping exists. To be empty of grasping means to not be attached to grasping. To not be attached to grasping is to treat grasping like one of the many trees in the forest. There's a tree, there's another tree. You don't think, what should I do about that tree? It's just a tree. You know, here in Brighton, probably most people here have walked through Stanmer Park. And I don't know about you, but I've never once thought, what should I do about any single tree that I've passed? Never thought, oh, what should I do about that tree? It's just a tree. It's just a thought, it's just an idea, it's just a volition. Return to center whenever you're ready and lay on your back whenever you're ready. And I know you're ready now because everyone loves laying on their back. So laying on your back with your hands underneath your head as if you're on holiday. Or a roller day, as I call them, which is like a sort of retreat mixed with a holiday. Like the various, well, I'm going to do an advert now, just in case anyone wants to tune out. This is an advert. Like the roller days, I'll be teaching some on my own and some with Kadeen next year. That's an advert. That's not even going to tell you where they are or what time. I've now run out of advertising steam. Anyway, lift up your feet, lower back close to the floor. Jaw soft.
Well, we do have one retreat this year, or I have one retreat, an immersion, still spaces left, a few. That's it. No, I'm not even telling you where it is. Lift up your head, breathe through your nose, jaw soft. The abdomen's active, breath is deep. You can feel the abdomen switched on, right? How you know you're practicing yoga. Sanditiko Dhamma. It's apparent. What you need to know isn't in the future or the past or in a book or in the brain of someone more experienced than you. It's apparent here and now. It's got to tell you something. It's timeless. So this has nothing to do with time, nothing to do with in the future I'll get better at this pose, or in the past I was better at this pose. Right? With that, it's nothing. The experience of yoga is recognizable by its absence of time. Just bring your toes to touch the floor slowly, as slowly as is possible for you. And only keep the toes touching. Keep the lower back close to the floor. Slowly lower the head. You'll feel the upper abdominal fibers sliding out of the lower abdominal fibers as the head comes down, the heels are still up. The elbows come down. Now we swap from toes to heels on the floor. So you've got to extend the legs. Keep the lower back close to the floor. It actually should be quite strong for the belly. Just the heels on the floor, knees are bent. Both legs together. Now lift up your head and look towards your Nabha chakra, the navel center. Should be really hard. If it's not really hard, you ain't doing it right. Or you're very, very strong and my hat is off to you. Not that I've got a hat on. Heels on the floor. Head comes down. Breathe easy. Swap back to the tootsies. Sorry, the toes. Breathe through your nose. Breathe through your nose. Lift up your head again. Don't yank on the neck. Lift the toes, just float them above the floor. Hang from the ankles. Continue to flex. That is, let the hips come towards the thighs. And the thighs towards the hips. Now see if you can bring your pelvis off the floor. Really flex. It's all abdominal now. Now bring everything back down slowly. Head first, feet second, and then let me hear that deep breath of the sigh-like exhale. Take a few of those. With the lower back settling itself, we observe selflessness. The lower back settling itself, we observe selflessness. Flex the hips, open the angle at the back of the knees, about 90 degrees. Your feet as if against a regular perpendicular wall, a wall that is 90 degrees to the floor, not the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but just a regular wall. Lift up your head. Turn towards me as I'm turning towards you. Opposites towards each other. That is opposite knee, opposite elbow. They don't have to touch. Straighten the other leg. Stay relaxed or anticipate and go tense. I don't mind. And then bring your leg down slowly. Keep the lower back close to the floor. Bring it up calmly. Bend, turn. Do the other side. Don't forget to raise the opposite leg. Bring it down slowly. Bring it up calmly. Bend it, return to the center. Head down, feet down. Huff and puff. And then I suggest a huff after that. Maybe a couple of puffs, 3 more huffs. And then whatever comes after that. So just huffing and puffing and puffing and huffing with the jaw soft. Release the hands from behind your head. Roll over when you're ready, including now. Support yourself on your forearm. Have your hand as if you're holding a bunch of flowers low to the floor. Perhaps you're offering them to Mr. Rabbit in his little hole. Mr. Rabbit flowers. And then lift up when you're ready. So you got this position like this. So it's like a Daṇḍāsana. And you can play with it any way you like. Sometimes it's nice to bring your hand down to the wrist or to the floor, or some people like to have the hand on the hip to intimate the amount of attitude that they have generally as a person, or raise the arm up or over, or all of them. You know, if you're someone who experiences FOMO, the back heel can be lifted. You can move forward, backwards. These are all options. We've got to look after the rotator cuff group, of course, the shoulder blade, the muscles that attach the arm to the shoulder blade. So whatever most conduces. Come down slowly. Come up calmly. Swap to the other side. Offering flowers, perhaps this time to Mr. Badger. Breathe easy. Morning, Mr. Badger. I brought you flowers. Oh, you don't like flowers. Oh, sorry. And then when you're ready, breathe easy. I'm not sure badgers particularly want flowers. Jaw soft, eyes soft. So you can have the hand on the wrist. That can help some people very much with the awareness of the rotator cuff. Those 4 muscles, 4 plus 1, I'll say. Attach the arm and the shoulder blade. So any arm position, you know, that suits you, and that keeps this mode of the easy mode. Even though the poses have challenge, it doesn't mean that, you know, we have to tense up. We can have an easy mode. When the going gets tough, the tough shouldn't get going. Like that. Come down slowly. See, well done. Oh, phew-wee, etc. Come up from the side. Sit on a block or 2. Up to you. We're going to be in Bharadvajasana. If you're on 2 blocks, you'll need a block behind you. Stretch your legs out in front of you. Take deep breaths. It's jolly hard today, isn't it, yoga? It's jolly hard. And then legs over towards this side of the room. I think it's a telesales center, I'm not sure. And we should aim to have the lower shin in the foot arch. You can do this, if it's difficult to sit doing this pose, you can do this sitting in a chair, just sitting regularly like Maitreya Bodhisattva, with legs straight, and then you lift and turn towards the chair, back. That's a good option, same pose. The back leg here mustn't lift. Right? The toes of your top leg should face straight back behind you, point straight back with the sole of the foot facing up. And you got it, you got it. So you make a sort of little cross. When you lift up on the inhale, don't lift this leg, and turn without lifting that leg. Which takes quite a lot of discipline, actually, because most of us are so, it's much easier, it's not actually easier, but it's lazier, which is not lazy. The trouble with laziness is it doesn't often mean easier. There's a misunderstanding that our laziness tells us, if you do X, it will be easier than if you do Y. But 9 times out of 10, what is easier, or what is lazier rather, is not easier. So it sort of feels lazier to not really pay much attention, to daydream. But it's not easier. It's easy to let the back leg release. It's actually easy. It depends on ease or sukha. But it's lazier and more habitual to tense up, to try, to do, to become. To do our yoga.
Return to center. Extend your legs. Draw the body flesh out and back. Give yourself a little rub down if you want. Any kind of rub down. I feel like it wants to be Dhyana Vayu, all over energy, equality. Feels like it's a really spiritually and socially important equality. So it's not just socially important, it's spiritually important. And then the legs over to the second side, we call it side B today. And then we've got the foot in the arch. So there's the arch, and then there's the foot, or the shin, actually, I should say, the lower shin. And then lift and shift. If it doesn't feel there's enough space to, for example, to turn your shin to face down, your shin of your back leg should face straight down. If it's not turning down, then your thigh will roll in, your spine will twist, you're going to put pressure on your medial meniscus, your facet joints are going to catch. Need I go on? So sitting on more than one block is often advantageous if your back leg thigh is really rolling in, which we don't want for all those reasons I've just listed. Inhale up, if you're ready, and turn away from your feet. Don't lift the back leg, tempting though it is. Jaw soft. Eyes soft. Aparigraha, energy of grasping. So notice if grasping comes. It does, it's not, empty of grasping doesn't mean that I'm not a good yogi. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me in confidence, I don't feel like I'm a proper yogi. If people could see me at home, they wouldn't realize, they'd think, they're not a proper yogi. I'm full of grasping, I have loads of greed, I watch way too many things on Netflix, But being a yogi doesn't mean that there's no lust, or craving, or grasping, or jealousy, or envy, or anger at all. It just means we're not attached to them. How do you not be attached? Think of the trees in the forest. You never think, what do I do about that tree? Release, return to center, breathe easy. It's very I can't now. I've got to stop. I want to keep going, but I've looked at the time and it says, Jim, you've got to think about slowing it down now. I don't want to. Jim, you have to. All right. So we're gonna sit on a block. It's a bit like some sort of Gollum experience I had then, arguing with myself. Exactly. But he wants to carry on. draw the butterfly arm back. And you're in Tadāsana. Well, hopefully you're in Tadāsana. That's what we want. I don't know, but did anyone ever see Andy Serkis doing Theresa May? He did as Gollum. It was one of the best things ever. See if you can find that. Chest lifting, breathing through nose, shoulders down. Buttocks relaxed, knees relaxed. So I did promise a tantric meditation earlier, so we'll do that. We're going to imagine that the breath starts at the Dvaḍaśanta. Dvadash means 12, Anta means the end of, like in the word Vedanta, for example, the end of the Vedas. So the end of 12, so let's measure 12 with our fingers. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So let's do it from the crown of the head. 4 plus 4, plus 4, and then place your hand at that point, Tadāsana. Now we're going to imagine from there to the bottom of the breastbone. So just do me a favor, put one hand at the Tadāsana and one finger at the bottom of the breastbone. And just for a moment or two, imagine that the in-breath draws down from the top point to the bottom point. And when you breathe out, it returns back up. Try not to be tense. Nothing really matters that much. Just pointing that out. Now, after a while, you can sort of take your hand off first, and you can still feel the Tadāsana, and you can take your fingers off, and you can still feel the bottom of the breastbone. So you can then continue, if you like, without the hands now. Breathing down on the inhale, breathing up on the exhale. So once you get the feel for it, the hands can rest on the lap, but you can still feel the 2 points. So currently in training, the breath and visualization. We can add a bija syllable mantra divided into 2 halves. The mantra hamsa. Hum on the way in, hasa on the way out. Same pathway between that point above the crown of the head. And returning to it on the exhale. Hum on the way in, sa on the way out. This can indicate I am. Hamsa. But it can also indicate, or is the word for a swan, which is highly symbolic. Hamsa, the swan. When the water touches the swan, it just rolls off it. The swan occupies all territories, the sky, it can be on the earth, it can be on the water, it can be under the water. We're going to add one more element, that of kumbhaka. So holding the breath for one moment at each point. One still moment. Abide in the stillness. Whether that be at the bottom of the breastbone or at the Tadāsana. Still with hamsa. Pausing at the end of hum, you're pausing at the end of sa. Next time you take a breath in, stay with the retention for a moment at the heart. Imagine you're planting a little seed of light. And when you breathe out, that seed of light remains, growing as seeds do. So just normal breath after that, but you can sense this seed of light in the heart center. Staying in touch with that seed of light, we're going to lay down on our backs for precisely 67 seconds. But it doesn't start until you're actually laying down. So don't feel panicked. Not until the last person is lying down does the 67 seconds last. So it's 67 seconds of surrender. 67 seconds of surrender, 67 seconds of return to sender. "67 seconds of releasing all labels, including gender. Nothing to protect. 67 seconds. Releasing the defender. Everything merges back together. Everything blends back together. Self and other, skin and breath, mind and muscle, space and time. Success and failure all blend back. 67 seconds of the blender. And the gentle, distant honking of horns, of course, means it's time to, without losing touch with that interdependent experience, time to feel into this as if the movements that we might make of our toes and fingers and wrists were pulling on the strings of everything, just as everything is pulling on the strings of our own body. Stretching out and bending the legs when ready. Feet on the floor, buttocks scooted under. Take a deep breath in, followed by out. Roll when ready onto your side, facing away from the shrine side of the room. Rolling back towards the shrine side of the room when you're ready. With knees drawn up and tummy soft. And bringing yourself up from the side in your own time. Hands to prayer. May any benefit that we've gained in our acting in this way be shared and cause the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Thanks, Gan. Don't forget to sign up to my various mysterious retreats that are happening at mysterious locations at mysterious points in the mysterious future. Thanks so much, Zoomers, for coming. Much appreciated.
Namaste.
Thanks for being there. Lovely to see you. See you very soon. Bye. It's a cute dog, Alison. Cute dog. Bye.